به نام خدا سلام. این هفته داریم درباره نفت، نفحات نفت و مصاحب نفت صحبت میکنیم. این هفته داریم درباره مشکلات فرهنگی برآمده از سازوکار نفتی صحبت میکنیم. به گمان من در تعریف دقیق‌تر بایستی گفت نفت همان دولت است و البته دولت همان نفت است. واکنش شما به نوشته رضا امیرخانی چیه؟
تجربی نشون داده که کشورهایی که حالا به انواع مختلف یه پول بادآورده‌ای دارن، همشون تقریبا با درصد خوبی مردم تنبلی دارن، مردم متوقعی دارن و دولتی دارن که به این دامن میزنه.
چون نفت وجود دارد و پول راحت نفت وجود دارد و سرانش به خزانه میریزه و سرازیر میشه به خزانه، دیگه یه دولت تنبلی و بار آورده که دیگه اصلا دولت نیست، همون نفته.
دولت رو پدر در نظر بگیریم و ملت رو به عنوان فرزند. شما اگه پدری باشی که یه درآمدی بدون اینکه هیچ تلاش کنی پولی تو جیبت داری و این فرزند شما فرض کنید رفتیم بیرون، این از شما درخواستی داره و شما هم درآمدی از درونزا نداری ولی یه پولی داره بهت میرسه بیرون، با پول میتونی این رو خاموش کنی. این تا اینجاش اشکالی خیلی ایجاد نمیکنه. مشکل اونجا اتفاق میفته که شما کارهای دیگه‌ای که باید بکنی، باید برای این بچه شب بری داستان بخونی، باید بغلش کنی، باید باش ارتباط عاطفی، اینا رو دیگه ازش چشم پوشی مونه. راضیه، این راضی، این بزرگ میشه میرسه به الان میشه 20 سالش. یه آدمیه که اون در واقع توجه ها رو بهش صورت نگرفته، شما یاد نگرفتی، اون یاد نگرفته، الان هم نمیتونه رو پای خودش وایسه، نمیتونه بره در باز به پول تو جیبی شما یعنی وابسته است و الان نمیتونی وقتی بهش بدی مشکلات دیگه ایجاد.
یکی از مهمترین پیامدهای دولت نفتی اینه که در واقع باعث رشد فساد فرهنگی میشه. در واقع شما نگاه کنید تمام دولت‌هایی که بر نفت تاکید دارن در واقع فسادهای رشد میکنن. این فسادها انواع شاخه‌های مختلف داره، فساد توی بخش‌های مختلف، علاوه اقتصادی، فرهنگی، سیاسی، از هر نوعی داره. در واقع مهمترین مؤلفی که توی دولت‌های نفتیه در واقع خودش ضد فرهنگ، ضد انرژی‌های انسانیه. دولت‌های نفتی به جای اینکه بر روی بخش انسانی تمرکز کنه، نیازی به این بخش انسانی نداره، چون سرمایه مادیشو از بخش نفت داره تولید میکنه. برای همین هر چقدر که بخش انسانیش کمتر باشه، تو تصادفات، تو اتفاقات از دست بده، برای دولت مهم نیست. برای همین در کنار این، چون بخش انسانی مهم نیست، هر جا فسادم بشه برای مردم مهم نیست.
وقتی ما تو کشورمون ساختار حزبی قوی نداریم، خب من کاندیداتور میرم شعار میدم که ملت من سیب زمینی پخش میکنم، ملت من نفت و سر سفره‌تون میارم، ملت من یارانه بهتون میدم، من رای میارم دیگه. چه مکانیزمی اجازه داده من نفتو از روی نفت مایع میذارم، میگم نفتو میارم سر سفره‌تون؟ یه مکانیزم ساختاری کشورمونه دیگه.
یک مسئله هم تو فرهنگ مردم میاره این موضوع، اون همین هستش که من بزرگ که میشم میگم که خب الان باید برم تو صدا و سیما یه جا کار بکنم، باید برم وزارت نفت کار بکنم، باید برم مثلا وزارت صنایع کار بکنم. اگر از ابتدا این نفت به کمک می اومد که ما یک در واقع فرهنگ سازی در مردم ایجاد بکنیم، یک تسهیلگری، نقش تسهیلگری رو ایجاد کرده بود که جوونی که بزرگ میشه به فکر این باشه که من خودم میتونم چی کار بکنم، نه اینکه اون نفته چه کمکی به من بکند که من به یک جا برسم. این کمک کننده.
مشکل اصلی بحث امید به نفته، یعنی تا وقتی جامعه ما به نفت امید داشته باشه این مشکلات ایجاد میشه. وقتی وزیر نفت میاد میگه که ما اولین کشور از لحاظ منابع نفتی هستیم، منابع انرژی هستیم، مطمئنا این امید توی مردم ایجاد میشه، آره نیازی نیست ما کاری انجام بدیم.
خلاصه‌ای بود از بحث‌های دیشب ما که حول محور کتاب نفحات نفت رضا امیرخانی شکل گرفته بود. در نفحات نفت رضا امیرخانی راه‌حل‌های ارائه میده برای حل مشکل دولت نفتی که تنه میزنه به بازار آزاد و بخش خصوصی و اینجور چیزا، به اون فرایندی که میخواد دولت رو کوچیک بکنه به نفع بازار و مارکت. اصطلاحاً میگن نئولیبرالیسم. اما یا نئولیبرالیسم تنها راه کوچیک کردن دولته؟ این سوال من از مهمان برنامه امشب جیوگی. مهمان امشب ما در تفکر فلسفی خودش قائل به کوچیک بودن دولته، البته با یک نگاه غیر نیولیبرالیستی. او خودش رو یک آنارشیست خطاب میکنه. آنارشیست برعکس اونجوری که در ایران ازش هرج و مرج برداشت میشه، یک نوع تفکره که اعتقادی به وجود چیزی به اسم دولت نداره. آنارشیست‌ها دولت مدرن رو مانع خلاقیت فردی میدونن و حرفشون اینه که به جای دولت خود مردم باید اداره امورات خودشون رو بر عهده بگیرن. آنارشیست‌ها همیشه و البته به درستی متهم به یک نوع ایدئالگرایی هستند و واقعیت نشون داده که اگر هیچ خاصیتی نداشته باشن، حداقلش اینه که خوب بلدن وضع موجود رو نقد کنن و مهمان امشب ما از این قضیه مستثنا نیست. نوام چامسکی یکی از مشهورترین و تأثیرگذارترین متفکرین معاصر دنیاست. او متولد سال 1928 در ایالت فیلادلفیای آمریکاست و همکنون استاد بازنشسته دانشگاه MIT است. تخصص اصلی او زبانشناسی است، اما مقالات و آثار او در زمینه نحوه کنترل مردم توسط رسانه‌های آمریکایی مورد استقبال اهالی اندیشه قرار گرفته. چامسکی منتقد سیاست خارجی آمریکاست و در دوران جوانی زندانی سیاسی را تجربه کرده. این متفکر آمریکایی مؤلف بیش از 100 اثر علمی است و مناظره او با میشل فوکو که در آن او مغلوب واقع شد، جزو ویدیوهای محبوب فضای مجازی بین اهالی اندیشه در غربه.
A decent society should maximize the possibilities for this fundamental human characteristic to be realized.
Je suis dans ma démarche beaucoup moins avancée, je vais beaucoup moins loin que M. Chomsky. Une des tâches qui me paraît urgente, immédiate, avant même toute autre chose, c'est celle-ci. On a l'habitude, du moins dans notre société européenne, de considérer que le pouvoir, il est localisé entre les mains du gouvernement et il s'exerce par un certain nombre d'institutions bien particulières qui sont l'administration, en France on appelle ça préfectorale, enfin je ne sais pas comment on dit ailleurs, l'administration, la police, l'armée. On sait que toutes ces institutions-là sont faites pour transmettre les ordres, les faire appliquer et punir les gens qui n'obéissent pas. Mais je crois que le pouvoir politique, il s'exerce encore, il s'exerce en outre, de plus, par l'intermédiaire d'un certain nombre d'institutions qui ont l'air comme ça de n'avoir rien de commun avec le pouvoir politique, qui ont l'air d'en être indépendantes et qui ne le sont pas. On sait bien que l'université, d'une façon générale, tout le système scolaire, qui en apparence est fait simplement pour distribuer le savoir, on sait que cet appareil scolaire est fait pour maintenir au pouvoir une certaine classe sociale et exclure des instruments du pouvoir toute une autre classe sociale.
او امروز در سن 88 سالگی جلوی دوربین جیوگی قرار گرفته. مهمان امروز من نوام چامسکی است. خوش اومدید آیه چامسکی به برنامه جیوگی. فکر کنم این اولین باری باشه که شما دارید با مردم ایران رو در رو گفتگو میکنید. امیدوارم که علیرغم این فاصله ها و فضای مجازی و ترجمه ها گفتگوی خوبی رو با هم داشته باشیم.
Very pleased to be able to do so.
شما استاد زبانشناسی هستید و تبحر شما و تخصص شما زبانشناسی هست. اما شما درباره مسائل دیگه از جمله سیاست خارجی صحبت میکنید. چه ربطی وجود داره بین زبانشناسی و سیاست خارجی؟
You mean what connection is there between my professional work in linguistics and speaking about foreign policy? None. Issues of foreign policy and political affairs generally are open to any informed person who wants to take the effort to understand them. It's not quantum physics. There's no experts. There are people who pretend to be experts, but in fact the material's open, available. One can research it, discover the sources, and enter directly into a political analysis and engagement. It's a task for every citizen and one that anyone can undertake at whatever level of complexity and intensity they choose.
بعضی ممکنه این رو به حساب میان رشته‌ای بودن شما بذارن. اینکه شما یک استادی هستید که هم میان رشته‌ای فکر می‌کنید، هم می‌نویسید. آیا شما خودتون رو یک استاد میان رشته‌ای می‌دونید؟ آیا میان رشته‌ای بودن رو توصیه می‌کنید؟
You should investigate what the problems demand. If you're studying a technical problem of the history of Indo-European, there isn't much point in a multidisciplinary approach. If you're studying U.S.-Iran relations, there are many factors of all sorts that enter. What kind of approach you pick depends on the problem you're addressing. There's no general answer. Depends what you're looking at.
ما یک مفهومی داریم در ایران که جدیداً مد شده و در واقع سیاست‌های دولت کنونی رو بعضیا منتسب می‌کنن به این مفهوم. در آکادمی غربی هم این مفهوم الان خیلی رواج پیدا کرده و اون نیولیبرالیسم هست. نیولیبرالیسم چیه؟
What is neoliberalism? Neoliberalism is an extreme form of worship of markets, deregulation, privatization, removal of state initiative, deregulation of finance, and so on. A set of views that came into operation, pushed by many economists, also very strongly supported by the corporate sector, began pretty much with the Reagan-Thatcher years, took off, it's expanded over the world. It's been extremely harmful almost everywhere. There's been resistance to it. In Latin America, which was one of the most obedient followers of the doctrine, was devastated. Just as Southern Africa was, Latin America began to respond, pulled out of it in the last 10 or 15 years, not completely, but significantly. In Europe, it's taken the form of imposing austerity conditions under recession, which is a recipe for disaster, as even the economists of the International Monetary Fund recognize, though not their political actors. They're different from their own economists. In the United States, it's led to about 30 years of essentially stagnation or even decline for the large majority of the population, the poorer part, along with extraordinary wealth for a tiny fraction of the population. Now, the claim that they're relying on markets is a total and complete fraud. They're relying extensively on powerful state intervention, but for the benefit of the wealthy and the powerful. And you can see that very clearly. So one of the leading phenomena of the neoliberal era is the vast increase in the scale of financial institutions. If you go back to the 1960s and the 1970s, banks were banks. You know, somebody deposited money in them, they lent them to someone else to start a business or buy a car or whatever. Beginning in the 1970s and taking off dramatically in the 1980s and later, they're barely banks anymore. They're huge financial institutions involved in speculation, complex financial instruments which deceive the public into undertaking highly risky and costly actions like subprime mortgages. Deregulation began in the early 80s. There were no financial crises before that. Legislation had constrained financial institutions. As soon as deregulation started, advocated by the economics profession, by the wealthy, and so on, you get one financial crisis after another, each one worse than the last. We may be heading into another one right now. Meanwhile, the financial institutions became almost half of total corporate profits in the United States. Huge phenomenon. Where are they getting their profit from? Well, actually, that was studied by the International Monetary Fund, technical paper. They studied the 6 largest U.S. banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citibank, the others. Turns out that almost all their profits come from the taxpayer. The mechanism is an implicit government guarantee that they will be rescued if they get in trouble. Now, that does lead to the bailouts, which people notice, but that's a small part of it. It means they get cheap credit, they can get easy access to money, they get incentives to carry out risky transactions which are profitable, but then when they collapse, they're bailed out. It amounts to a subsidy of maybe $80 billion a year, according to the business press. And it's the same throughout. So it's not that they're turning to the market. They're turning to a particular form of state capitalism designed for the benefit of the wealthy and the powerful and the corporate sector. That's neoliberalism.
یکی از اهداف این برنامه دعوت به کوچیک کردن دولت بوده، اینکه ما باید اراده‌های خلاق رو ترویج بکنیم در جامعه. آیا مدلی وجود داره که ما بتونیم دولت رو کوچیک بکنیم اما در دام مدل‌های نیولیبرال نیفتیم؟
If the state, you can make the state small if there are no other predatory, destructive institutions, but there are. When you have private enterprise and capital concentration in the private sector, it's necessary to have the state simply to defend against their practices. So there's an image that's used by working groups in Brazil and elsewhere. It's called living in a cage. You're in a cage. There's a saber-toothed tiger outside. That's the corporate sector. The cage is the government. You don't like the government. You'd like to make it smaller. But you need the cage to protect you against the bigger threat that's outside. So as long as you have private concentrations of capital, the public needs to be protected. Deregulation is a perfectly good example. As I said, as long as banks were regulated by the state, there were no financial crises. As soon as deregulation began under the neoliberal principles, you get crisis after crisis, and it's the public that pays for it. The perpetrators, the big banks, they do fine. They came out of the last crisis bigger and richer than ever. They're responsible for it, but they're bailed out by the taxpayer, so they just get bigger and richer and richer. That's state. It makes good sense in the longer term to eliminate and reduce state power, but only when you get to the point where it's not needed to protect the society against a much greater danger.
یکی از مشکلاتی که ما در ایران داریم نفتی بودن دولته. این که اقتصاد نفتی خلاقیت‌ها رو از بین برده، اجازه نمیده انرژی‌های مختلف، اراده‌های مختلف به صحنه بیان و جامعه ما رو بسازن. و این توسط خیلی از محققان نقد شده، از جمله رضا امیرخانی که از قضا مهمان شماره 0 برنامه جیوگی بود، برنامه حالا مثلا اول ما. او هم مثل شما آنارشیست، البته با رویکرد گفتمان انقلاب اسلامی. او وقتی میخواد راه حل ارائه بده، راه حلاش تنه میزنه به مفاهیم بازار آزاد و اقتصاد نیولیبرال. و من همیشه به این فکر کردم که آیا یک مدل توازنی وجود داره که ما بتونیم دولت رو کوچیک کنیم اما دولت همچنان قدرتمند باشه که بتونه ما رو در برابر مثلا هجمه خارجی حفاظت بکنه. در این حال اراده‌های خلاق کار خودشون رو انجام بدن، دولت همه جا دست و پاگیر نباشه، بخش خصوصی هم یک استقلال نسبی داشته باشه، ولی خب همه جا رو نیاد بگیره، مثلا مثل مدل آمریکا و غرب. آیا مدل توازنی وجود داره؟ آیا ما میتونیم به این توازن بین دولت کوچیک اما قدرتمند، بخش خصوصی نیمه مستقل و این اراده‌های خلاقی میخوان انرژی انقلابی داشته باشن و میخوان کار خودشون رو انجام بدن و دولت رو مانع خودشون نمیبینن وجود داشته باشه، آیا ما میتونیم به این مدل توازنی فکر کنیم؟
Yeah. There's no general answer to how strong the state should be. It depends on the nature of the society. You cannot pick one piece out of a complex social economic system and say, let's fix that. Everything is interdependent. So if suppose that, say, the state in Iran, state control of Iran was weakened and the oil was put into the hands of international energy corporations, that would be much worse for Iran.
خب بریم سراغ تخصص دوم شما، سیاست خارجی. آیا تفاوتی وجود داره بین سیاست خارجی بوش در نسبت با خاورمیانه و اوباما؟ آیا این دوتا با هم فرقی میکنن وقتی داریم درباره خاورمیانه صحبت میکنیم؟
Yeah, there's a change. I mean, Bush, it's more or less back to something more or less normal. The Bush administration went way out to an extreme of aggressiveness and violence. So the invasion of Iraq, for example, on completely manufactured pretexts, was certainly the worst crime of this century and a major crime. I mean, the belief of the sort of what they called the neoconservatives who ran the Bush administration, Cheney and Rumsfeld, was they were simply going to make history. They were going to change the world by force and violence. They'd overthrow Iraq, they'd overthrow Iran, they'd overthrow Syria, they'd run the world by force. They'd be in charge. What they did was hit a fragile system with a sledgehammer and cause enormous damage. I mean, they killed hundreds of thousands of people, created millions of refugees, ignited a sectarian conflict which had not existed before and is now tearing the country apart, tearing the region apart. And that's happened over and over, actually Obama too. So the attack on Libya was similar. There was a settlement in Libya at the time that NATO decided to attack. Actually, France was in the lead in that case. England followed, the United States followed. There could have been a peaceful settlement, which in fact was initiated by the African Union. And it could very well have worked. Instead, what they did is decided to become the Air Force of the rebels, smashed the country, another sledgehammer hitting a complex society. Now the country is a total wreck in the hands of warring militias. It's been a center for the huge flow of arms and jihadis to the Middle East, to Africa. In fact, the worst terrorist atrocities in the world right now happen to be in Africa, most of it flowing out of the Libyan catastrophe. That's what happens when you take complex social systems, which of course you don't understand, and you simply smash them and hope that you're going to rule them. What you do is cause enormous damage. Now, Obama has moved back to a somewhat more restrained position, which I think is basically the right direction to pursue, not enough. They have to turn to diplomacy, negotiations, dealing with the roots of conflict, not just hitting them with a hammer and hoping they'll go away. And in that way, some of these terrible problems in the Middle East may be able to be ameliorated. Actually, the whole region is in a horrible state, worse than it's been for a long time. But I think that there are good things that can come out. So take, say, ISIS, which is a total monstrosity. But one thing they've done is something that should be done. Begin to unravel the effects of the Sykes-Picot Treaty, the imperialist treaty of the arrangements during the end of the First World War between France and Britain, which carved the region up in ways that were very harmful to the populations and paid no attention to their interests. It was just done for the interests of the imperial powers. So, for example, Britain wanted the oil fields in the north of Iraq, so that was taken and put into Iraq, area around Mosul and so on. Kuwait was established to prevent the new state of Iraq from having reasonable access to the sea, so it would be under British control. France did the same in Syria and Lebanon. It's wreckage. And that's now coming apart in very ugly ways, but maybe something good could come out of it.
من کنجکاوم نظر شما رو درباره مذاکرات هسته ایران و غرب بدونم. نظر شما چیه؟ درباره مذاکرات چه فکری میکنید؟
They're better than nothing, and I'm glad that they took place. But, and in fact, Europe is very satisfied with them and is establishing much closer relations with Iran. There are some real questions. For example, there have been, there would be very simple ways to deal with whatever threat Iranian nuclear weapons are supposed to pose, which is an interesting question in itself. There are ways to deal with it. The obvious way is to move to establish a nuclear weapons-free zone in the entire region. Now, that's strongly advocated by Iran. It's been strongly advocated by the Arab states. Practically the whole world is in favor of it. There's one reason why it doesn't take place. The U.S. won't allow it. Israel's opposed because it would mean inspection of their nuclear system, and the U.S. is blocking it. Obama just did again. There was just another meeting a couple of weeks ago, an international conference where, at the General Assembly, where there was strong support for it. The U.S. blocked it. And there have been, Turkey, Brazil, and Iran reached a pretty sensible arrangement. 2010 was blocked by the United States. The U.S. wants to control the situation, but that does raise a question. Why is the U.S. so concerned about the possibility that Iran might develop nuclear weapons? Actually, we know the answer. U.S. intelligence has explained the answer publicly to Congress. They're concerned that Iran's nuclear programs, whether or not they lead to nuclear weapons, might be a deterrent. And the U.S. and Israel will not tolerate a deterrent. They want to be free to use force and violence without deterrence. That's the actual issue. So yes, I'm glad that the deal went through partially, may still be blocked by Congress, but partially went through. It's better than nothing, but the reasons behind it are it's a very mixed story when you look into it. And the Republican Party is dedicated to undermining and destroying it. Every Republican candidate has said that if elected, they'll end it. Now, that won't end the deal. It'll isolate the United States. Presumably Europe and Iran will continue, but it'll exclude the United States, which is a big factor. They're taking moves step by step to undermine the arrangement. A couple of weeks ago, legislation was passed on waiver of visas, and they targeted Iran. So if a British or French businessman has gone to Iran, they're going to have difficulties getting into the United States. On the other hand, if they go to Saudi Arabia, there's no problems at all. And it's supposed to be an anti-terrorist move. There haven't been any terrorists from Iran. They're all coming from Saudi Arabia. But these are the kinds of moves that are being made to try to pick away and undermine the deal. And if a Republican wins the White House, I think it's very likely that they'll rescind it and isolate the United States from the international community. I hope that in that case, Iran and Europe will continue instead of Iran withdrawing. I think that would be the right thing to do, but it could be a very disturbed and dangerous situation.
خب وقت این سوال به وجود میاد با توجه به بحث تحریم‌های اخیر، این موضوع روادید که شما بهش اشاره کردید، اگه شما ایران بودید به دولت آمریکا اعتماد می‌کردید؟
If I was a sane human being, I wouldn't trust any state in the world. You should never trust systems of power and domination. You don't trust states. When you look at what they're doing, why they're doing it, what the interests are, what the power systems are behind it, and you draw conclusions about the best way to respond, but not trust.
خب به عنوان سوال ما قبل آخر می‌خوام درباره عربستان صحبت بکنیم. ما می‌دونیم که غرب و به طور خاص آمریکا برای مدت طولانی حامی عربستان بوده. چه چیزی این حمایت رو توجیه می‌کنه؟
Well, if you ask the question what justifies it is not the right question. Nothing justifies it. The question is what explains it. Well, what explains it is pretty straightforward. Back in the 1930s, it was understood that Saudi Arabia has extraordinary reserves of fossil fuels, and it is what they called one of the greatest material prizes in world history, as the State Department described it. During the Second World War, there was a kind of a mini-war going on between Britain and the United States as to who would control Saudi Arabia. The U.S. was, of course, far more powerful, so it won out. Ever since then, Saudi Arabia has been a prime close ally of the United States, both because of its enormous energy reserves and its geostrategic position. So that's an explanation. It's not a justification.
نظر شما درباره این نظم جدیدی که در عربستان به قدرت رسیده چیه؟ چه اتفاقی داره اونجا میفته؟
My impression is that they're somewhat desperate. They're acting pretty irrationally. They're in serious trouble. They're in economic trouble for the first time in a long time. Their reserves are declining. They have big deficits. If they don't have a big surplus, they cannot buy off the population. They keep their population quiet largely by giving them benefits. If you can't do that, the population may erupt. The war in Yemen is devastating for Yemen, and it's hopeless for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia can bomb and destroy, but they're not going to win the war. They're now under criticism from the West, which is unprecedented. Even in the United States, newspaper editorials, commentary, and others are beginning to criticize the extreme repression internal to Saudi Arabia and their sponsoring of jihadi and other organizations. Commentators have pointed out accurately, the best commentators, that, quote Patrick Coburn, the Wahhabization of Sunni Islam is one of the most dangerous developments of the modern era through, first of all, plain funding of extremist groups, then building, Quranic schools, madrasas, radical clerics all over the world, radical mosques. It's had a terrible effect in much of the Sunni world, and that's now becoming recognized. And I think with all of these things happening, the Saudi leadership is kind of flailing. They're trying to find a way to deal with it and acting in, I think, pretty irrational ways. So is Iran. The murder of the cleric was a crime, of course, but the Iranian reaction was a bad mistake, as I think the government recognizes. They fell into a trap. That was the Saudi trap. Best not to fall into it. They're in trouble, and I think one reason why the West loves them is they're an enormous source of armament. The United States, Britain, and France are pouring arms into Saudi Arabia. Their arms industries are making huge profits. And as long as the Saudi economy continues to function, yes, there'll be support for them, but it is eroding. And I think the Saudi leadership is deeply concerned about that.
خیلی ممنون آقای چامسکی. اگر پیامی برای مردم ایران و به خصوص جوانان دارید خواهش میکنم بفرمایید.
Be courageous, be hopeful, look forward to a better future. It'll be hard to achieve, but with dedicated, honest struggle, I think a lot of progress can be made and Iran can become one of the great civilizations of the world once again.
اگر مردم ایران شما رو به ایران دعوت بکنن، دعوت اونها رو قبول میکنید؟ به ایران تشریف میارید؟
Oh, I'd very much like to come. It's hard for me to work out foreign travel. There's an enormous number of invitations and a limit on what I can do. But I'd love to be. I've been hoping to come for a long time.
از شما تشکر میکنم که در این گفتگو با من همراه بودید و خیلی ممنون که دعوت جیوگی رو قبول کردید. خدا نگهدار.
Thank you.
خیلی ممنون که با یک جیوگی دیگه با ما همراه بودید. ای کاش میشد این مصاحبه رو رو در رو انجام داد تا خاصیت چالشی جیوگی حفظ بشه. شاید هم میشد یه سری عکس آماده کرد بهشون نشون داد و بگیم که منظور شما چیه، ولی خب به هر دلیل این اتفاق نیفتاد. تا فردا شب که می‌خوایم بحث رو ادامه بدیم، فعلا خدا نگهدار.